And if you were just joining us, we opened with breaking news this morning from Adrian Wojnarowski, who reported live right off the top of our show that Anthony Davis and the Lakers are putting the finishing touches on a 5-year, $190 million max contract. So the Lakers locking up LeBron the other day and now locking up Anthony Davis. They will have the two of them together for at least the next 3 years. Jay Will has made his way from across the hall. And Woj, the man is just dropping bombs left and right the last couple of days. Woj, what more can you tell us about this AD deal?
Well, AD considered several scenarios, shorter deals, medium-sized deals, and ultimately decided on the longest deal he could do. And now that 5-year, $190 million deal, Clutch's CEO, his agent, Rich Paul, tells me will include an early termination option after before the 2024-25 season, where he can go back in, do another extension with the Lakers, and still be just 32 years old and presumably get another max deal. But this kind of closes the circle on this whole process with Anthony Davis from he and Rich Paul asking for that trade out of New Orleans back in February of 2019, getting the trade in June of 2019 to the Lakers, winning a title in October. Now 5 years, $190 million. I'm told he will probably sign that deal as soon as today.
All right, and so, Jay, well, the first thing you said to me as you walked in here was, it's scary how good.
You want the trophy? You want the trophy right now?
Done? It's that good?
I don't think it's done, barring injuries. But, I mean, they are exponentially better than any other team in the NBA. Look at what they've been able to do. They re-signed KCP. They bring on Dennis Schroeder, a guy that can score on anybody. He was part of a pivotal backcourt last year with OKC. You bring on a guy that was literally in the same building that you stole from the team that you share the building with. Mm-hmm. When you think about what Montrezl Harrell brings from a big perspective, you sign Marcus Saul. You still have a guy like Kyle Kuzma there. They have all the pieces to be, and Wesley Matthews, a guy that can space the floor from a three-point shooting perspective.
So they've got LeBron and AD now locked in together for 3 years. LeBron is 3 years. In those 3 years, how many rings do they win?
I think they can get at least 2 more.
That's the magic number, right? More. Because that means 6 for LeBron, and we all know what that means.
I mean, and now you think about LeBron has a chance on the back end if he does get 2 more. We're already having the conversation about him being the greatest of all time with Michael Jordan. I think this just continues to raise the profile of his dominance within the league.
All right, and so we have that situation. Then let me go back to Woj, because it feels like 15 minutes ago, we were reacting to the enormous story you broke last night, which is the trade of Russell Westbrook to Washington for John Wall. So let's analyze what that means for the superstars in their places. What does it mean for Bradley Beal in Washington, and what does it mean for James Harden in Houston?
Yeah, and that is the question, Greeny, for both those organizations. Can the exchange of point guards help to keep, whether it's Bradley Beal in Washington, James Harden in Houston, can that help to convince them to stay long-term? The Rockets have a little more cushion. Harden has 2 years left on his deal, but there's more urgency in Washington with Russell Westbrook. And I know this about Westbrook right now. He has been very bothered, I'm told, by the suggestion of the kind of teammate he is and the criticism that he's felt he's taken here in the last month's year about being a great teammate. That's important to him. I think those who played with him in his career consider him among the most loyal guy who would do almost anything for the guys around him or people in an organization. And I think going to Washington, I think that's extra motivation for him to really try to make it work with Bradley Beal, to be a point guard who can share the ball and spotlight Beal and help him to become an All-NBA player and get this Wizards team back in the playoffs.
Well, how do you see it, Jay? Well, it's a fascinating deal in so many ways.
Yeah, I think it's a win for the Wizards. Look, it's going to get the Wizards back into the playoffs. People forget that Russell Westbrook averaged 27 points per game, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. He was third team All-NBA. If he didn't have that hamstring injury, we might have been talking about a different Russell Westbrook after he came off COVID into the bubble. So him, Davis Bertans, Bradley Beal, I love this. As it relates to James Harden, I don't know. Now if you're James Harden, you didn't want to be there in the first place. You might be forced to play this through. I hope John Wall comes back and is incredible. He's looked incredible in some of these pickup games I've heard him playing. But now you have John Wall coming up an Achilles injury, hasn't played since 2018. Have DeMarcus Cousins, hasn't played due to injury. it's a lot of question marks for the Houston Rockets. I don't think it's enough to get James Harden to stay in Houston.
Well, the man who always has the answers for us is Woj, and Jay Will, of course, KJZ, coast to coast every morning on ESPN Radio. Woj, can't tell you how much we appreciate you doing all that this morning for us. The great Adrian Wojnarowski.
Thanks, guys.
And again, Jay Will back on Get Up. And if you were just joining us, we opened this morning with breaking news. Adrian Wojnarowski with a Woj bomb right off the top of our show. Anthony Davis and the Lakers are finalizing a 5-year, $190 million max contract. So it becomes a day of enormous basketball news between this and the trade from yesterday. But the headline here is that the Lakers now have LeBron locked up for 3 years and Anthony Davis locked up for 5. And let's start the conversation there with Big Perk. It's been too long since we've had Kendrick Perkins back here. Great to see you, big fella. So with that Laker news, let's say that's 3 years now they are assured of having AD and LeBron together. In those 3 years, how many championships do they win?
Well, Granny, listen, all I've been hearing this whole offseason is that it's not that much money. Guys are not about to get paid. But guess what? Down there in L.A., guess what's happening? All I see is the Brinks trucks going up and down the highway, Greeny. And look, they are taking care of their superstars, and rightfully so. You have a guy who people call the Wash King in LeBron James. Guess what? Jenny Buss said he's not washed to us, and we go show you. We go extend him to a well-deserved $85 million contract. And then we're going to lock in our 27-year-old generational stud in Anthony Davis. Our duo is not going anywhere. And we have strong belief that over the next 4 years at least, that these two guys could be the best duo in the league and deliver more championships, and rightfully so. Job well done by the Lakers organization, Rob Pelinka and Rich Paul by getting it done.
I'm not letting you off the hook. How many? Next 3 years. Right now, those two guys are locked in for the next 3. How many of the next 3 rings do you think the Lakers get?
I think they get about 2, maybe. I think they get about 2, Greeny. And look, right now, LeBron is feeling rejuvenated. He knows that he's playing alongside Anthony Davis, and he wants to take advantage of it. And look, watch and see in the next couple of years, LeBron is going to defer to Anthony Davis, and Anthony Davis will be in the MVP conversation. So I see them winning at least 2 more championships.
Well, that's a really significant number, Kendrick Perkins, and you don't need me to tell you this, but just to remind everyone, LeBron has 4. 2 more would give him 6. What would 6 championships for LeBron James mean for his legacy?
Well, I know your partner in crime, Stephen A, is probably saying not a damn thing, but it would do everything for his legacy. It would shut up the old haters like Jalen Rose, my guy, who always going to keep Michael Jordan at the top, but it's going to put him right there in the conversation with Mike and prove those old haters wrong. So I'm rooting for old King James to go ahead and get his 6 titles.
All right, again, they have added other pieces as well. Montrezl Harrell, Dennis Schroeder, Marc Gasol, so they get younger and more veteran experience. The Lakers go into next year as a significant favorite. Meanwhile, for those of you who didn't see the news yesterday, a Woj bomb late yesterday afternoon, an enormous trade in the NBA with Russell Westbrook going to Washington from Houston in exchange for John Wall. So let's start by talking about Houston. What does that make them with James Harden, John Wall, who hasn't played in almost 2 years? What do you think this means for the Rockets?
Well, Granny, to be honest, I don't know, and I don't think the Rockets know. I think this is going to be a trial run. What I want you to look out for and everybody to watch is watch the Philadelphia 76ers and the Houston Rockets the first 30 games of the season. Because if it's not going their way for both teams, look for Daryl Morey to be aggressive in pursuing James Harden. Because if that John Wall fit, if the John Wall and James Harden don't fit, James Harden is really going to force his way out, and I see him going to the 76ers if it don't pan out the way he wants it.
I've heard Philly, and of course we heard some speculation about Brooklyn. Right now, James Harden, if you were advising him and he's your former teammate, would you tell him to go to Philly and play with those guys or go to Brooklyn and play with KD?
Well, short term, I would tell him to go to the Brooklyn Nets. Long term, I would tell them to go to the Philadelphia 76ers and pair up with Joel Embiid. He's never played with a big man like Joel. He's never played with a player like Joel Embiid. This guy's a generational talent. I think those two would match well together, and they could play together for the next 4 to 5 years at an extremely high level. Going to the Brooklyn Nets, that would be like a 2-year deal where it was just like, oh, I'm coming here to try to win a title. What's next? But if you go to Philly, you could play there long term.
You see on the screen, the Rockets don't plan to trade James Harden, but we all know what happens to plans. Every now and again, you wind up getting punched in the face. Big Perk, outstanding to see you, my friend. We'll do it again soon. Meanwhile, let me get up and that and more as we get up with you on this Thursday from the Seaport. Greeny here, delighted you're there. My football crew is ready to go. But let us go to breaking news immediately. Our NBA insider extraordinaire, Adrian Wojnarowski, has been dropping bombs left and right, and we have a new one this morning. Woj, what do we have?
Greeny, Anthony Davis is finalizing a 5-year, $190 million max deal to return to the Lakers. His agent, Rich Paul, tells me that deal will include an early termination option before the 5th year, before the 24-25 season. So now Anthony Davis and LeBron James both locked up long term. I'm told that Davis could sign that contract as soon as today.
Yeah, so LeBron with a 2-year extension on top of the year that he had. That's 3 more years for him. AD for 5 years now. So the Lakers in extraordinarily good shape going into this season. And I mentioned Woj has been very busy with that breaking news on top of the trade last night. For those, Woj, who didn't see it, let's go through the monster deal from the NBA last night, the Rockets and the Wizards.
Yeah, John Wall headed to the Houston Rockets, along with a 2023 first-round pick for Russell Westbrook. That was a deal that came together very quickly yesterday. The two general managers talked for the first time in weeks in the afternoon, and they had a deal a few hours later, agreed on the parameters of the deal. And now, you know, for both Houston and Washington, each is trying to please their franchise player, James Harden and Bradley Beal. They exchanged point guards. Both point guards wanted to go to the other team. And there's a lot at stake for both Washington and Houston now as they move forward and trying to keep Bradley Beal, trying to keep James Harden long term.
So many moving parts in all of this. Again, it's almost hard to keep track of. Is there any way of gauging at this point how this will impact James Harden, who we know has been giving serious thought to wanting out of Houston? Do we have any way of knowing if this will make him happy?
Well, he had a preference of John Wall over Westbrook, although in the last couple of years, you know, Harden has moved teammates in and out, brought Chris Paul in, moved him out. Same with Russell Westbrook now. Whether that's going to be enough to convince him to want to be there long term, Rockets aren't sure about that. They do have a cushion to work with. Remember, James Harden's under contract for 2 more years. So they're going to start the season with Harden and Wall, and they're hopeful that John Wall can get back to that all-star form, a 5-time all-star, a former #1